There is a memory you have never told anyone the full truth about. Not because you are hiding it, but because you do not have the words for what it actually did to you. It was not just the event, it was the moment after, the silence after, the way life just continued like nothing had collapsed inside you, the way everyone else kept moving, and you were standing there, holding something heavy that had no name, and you learned to carry it quietly. You got good at it, functional, presentable, fine. But at night, when the noise stops and the phone goes still and there is nothing left to distract you, it comes back. That feeling, that old weight, that version of you who is still sitting in that moment, waiting for something to finally shift. The people who feel this in their chest right now, type this line exactly as it. Today, I am ready to release the memory I have been carrying alone for far too long. You have tried to move on, many times. You have tried to forgive, to forget, to release, to heal, and yet here you are. What nobody told you is this: you were never supposed to forget it the way you were trying to. Tonight, you will understand why, and what actually works instead. There is a memory living in your body right now that your mind never gave you permission to keep. You did not choose it, you do not want it, and yet it wakes up before you do. It is not the big dramatic moments that follow you, not always. Sometimes it is something smaller, a smell, a song playing from a car window 2 streets over, the particular quality of afternoon light in October. And then it is there again, that thing, that person, that version of your life that you have been trying to walk away from for years. And you are standing in your kitchen or sitting on the edge of your bed and you feel it, that pull, that old ache, like something unfinished reaching back toward you from across time. You have probably told yourself you are over it many times. You may have said the words out loud, you may have meant them, and then something small and unremarkable happens and the whole thing is alive again, right there in your chest, as real as the day it was born. That is what no one talks about honestly. Not the big grief, not the dramatic collapses, the quiet ones, the ones that live in ordinary moments, the ones you did not expect to still be carrying after this many years. You are not broken because this is still happening. You are not weak. You are not stuck because you cannot seem to let go on command. You are human. And the human brain was not built to forget what hurt it. It was built to remember, to protect, to flag the painful and file it somewhere accessible, not because it is punishing you, but because it believed it was keeping you safe. But here is what nobody explained to you in any of the books or videos or well-meaning advice. Memory is not a filing cabinet. It is not a library. It is not a fixed archive of what happened. Every time you remember something, you are not simply replaying it. You are rebuilding it. You are reconstructing it in real time, using the person you are right now as the architect. Neuroscience calls this reconsolidation, and it changes everything about what is actually possible for you. If you have ever felt like the past was something that happened to you, something locked in time, permanently carved into who you are, leave one word in the comments right now that describes what you are still carrying. Just one word. You do not have to explain it. The comment section holds more than people realize. Because what reconsolidation means is this: the memory is not fixed. Every time it surfaces, it is in a state of vulnerability. It is actually open to being changed, not erased. That is not the goal, and it is not how the brain works, but changed. The emotional charge of it, the identity it handed you, the story it keeps telling. All of that is malleable. All of that can shift. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the unconscious mind. He said that what you do not make conscious will direct your life from the shadows. He was describing the same thing neuroscience now quantifies with brain imaging studies. The stories you carry about who you are, built from what happened to you, do not stay in the past. They travel forward into every relationship, every decision, every morning you wake up with a low-level sense that something is still wrong. Neville Goddard called this the inner conversation. He said that your internal monologue, the one you run almost entirely without noticing, was the most powerful creative force in your life, not your actions, not your discipline. The The story you are unconsciously telling yourself about who you are and what is possible for you. The memory you cannot shake is not just a memory. It is a script. And somewhere inside it, you accepted a conclusion about yourself. Maybe that you are the kind of person things do not work out for. Maybe that love leaves. Maybe that you are invisible to the very forces that seem to bless everyone else. And that conclusion, not the event, but the conclusion, is what keeps surfacing. So what do you actually do with that? Not theoretically. Tonight, in real life. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret. Margaret was 53 years old and living in Manchester. She had raised 2 children mostly alone after her marriage ended. She had held jobs that paid the bills without ever lighting anything up in her. She was not dramatic about her life. She was quiet about it. She had the kind of tiredness that doesn't show in photographs, the kind that lives in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the slight tension around the eyes that never fully releases. The memory that followed Margaret was not one event. It was the accumulation of a decade of small moments in which she felt she had been found ordinary, unremarkable, not worth choosing. Her ex-husband had not been cruel. That almost made it harder. He had just looked at her one day with indifference, and she had spent the following 10 years in a quiet, steady project of trying to prove that wrong. To herself, mostly. She tried new things. She changed her hair. She read the right books. She went to the retreats. She repeated the affirmations every single morning in the bathroom mirror, like she had read to do, and she meant them, and nothing moved. The affirmations did not work for Margaret because they were pointing in the wrong direction. She was sending new words on top of an old identity, and the old identity, the one built from the conclusion she had absorbed, was louder, it was older. It had years of evidence filed behind it. The words were landing on a surface that did not believe them. What changed for Margaret was not a new technique. It was one evening in January when she was sitting in her kitchen, the radio on low, and something in her simply went still. She was not inspired, she was not motivated, she was just quiet in a way she had not been in a long time. And in that quiet, she had one thought that she had never allowed herself to have before. Not a positive thought, not an affirmation, just an honest one. She thought, what if the problem was never me? Not in a blaming way, not in an angry way. Just as a genuine, open question. What if the conclusion I have been carrying is simply not true? What if I absorbed something that was never accurate? She did not feel transformed in that moment. She felt nothing dramatic at all. But something in her posture shifted. Something in the internal conversation changed direction. And she began, from that night forward, spending a few minutes before sleep doing something different from everything she had tried before. She was not repeating new affirmations. She was not visualizing a specific outcome. She was simply practicing the feeling, just the feeling, of being someone whose life was whole. Not perfect. Whole. Complete. Not striving. Not seeking. Simply whole. Within 3 months, Margaret had a conversation with her adult daughter that had not been possible before. Not because she forced it, but because she was no longer arriving at that relationship from a posture of invisible grief. Within 5 months, an opportunity came through someone she had known for years, who had never previously thought to include her. She had not changed what she was doing on the outside. She had changed the signal she was sending from the inside. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote, and she wrote this nearly a century ago, that your word is your wand, but she did not mean the words you say out loud. She meant the words underneath the words, the ones running constantly in the dark, the ones built from old conclusions about who you are. And this is where the 5 pathways actually begin. Not as tips, not as techniques, as a way of understanding what is actually happening and what is genuinely available to you. The first is this: you must stop fighting the memory. Fighting it gives it more signal, not less. The brain interprets resistance as importance. When you push something away with effort, you are marking it as significant. You are telling the nervous system, this matters, pay attention to this. The counterintuitive move, the one that actually works, is to turn toward it with your full calm attention, not to relive it, to look at it clearly and ask, what conclusion did I make from this? Not what happened. What did I decide about myself the day this happened? Because the memory and the conclusion are two different things. The memory is a record, the conclusion is a story, and stories can be rewritten, not by fighting them, by replacing them from the inside. If something in the last few minutes has quietly landed, not like a new idea, but like a recognition of something you already knew, tap-like, it helps this reach someone else who is carrying what you are carrying. The second pathway is what researchers now call memory reconsolidation. When you bring a painful memory to mind, deliberately, calmly, not in crisis, but in a quiet and regulated state, it becomes briefly labile. It opens. In that window, you can introduce a new emotional experience alongside it. Not to overwrite what happened, to update the emotional meaning of it. This is not about pretending. It is about recognizing that the past event and the story you built from it are separable. The event was real. The identity it handed you is not permanent. A man in Cape Town named David had spent years unable to speak in group settings without a wave of anxiety so physical it felt like illness. The memory behind it was from childhood. A single moment of public humiliation in a classroom that his nervous system had filed as, "This is what happens when you speak." Not that one incident was dangerous, but that speaking itself was dangerous. David began doing something simple. Before sleep, he would bring that memory to mind gently, not to suffer it again, but to sit beside it. And then he would spend a few minutes imagining himself speaking in a room and actually feeling in the body, calm, not performance, not even confidence, just calm. After 11 weeks, something in him had genuinely shifted. He began participating in meetings, not because he told himself he could, but because his nervous system had updated its conclusion. The third pathway is the body. Memory is not only stored in the mind. Joseph Murphy wrote about the law of the subconscious, but he was pointing at something now confirmed by somatic research. Trauma, loss, chronic disappointment. They do not stay in the brain. They live in the tissue, in the way you hold your jaw, in the chronic tension in the back, in the breath that stays shallow even when nothing is happening. The body is holding a story, and the body can be spoken to, slowly, deliberately, through breath and through sensation. You can begin to create safety signals in the body that the old memory cannot dominate forever. This is not alternative healing. This is what the nervous system does. It responds to present signals. The fourth pathway is sleep, and this is perhaps the most underestimated. There is a window, the 20 minutes before you fully lose consciousness, when the brain is shifting from beta to alpha to theta. The conscious analytical guard begins to lower. The subconscious becomes permeable in a way it is not during the waking hours. This is the window, not a metaphor, a neurological reality. What you carry into that window, emotionally, imaginally, enters deeper than anything that happens during the day. Neville Goddard called this the portal. He built an entire practice around it. Sleep on the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not as instruction backed by an understanding of what the brain is actually doing in that state. The fifth pathway is the one that quietly holds all the others together. It is the willingness to let yourself be a different person than the one the memory decided you were. This sounds simple. It is not. Most people's identity, even an identity built on pain, is familiar. Familiar is safe to the nervous system. The unknown, even if the unknown is better, registers as threat. So part of what is required is not more belief, not more effort, not more trying. It is a willingness to let go of the old self gently, to mourn it even, if that is what it asks, and then to step slowly into the version of you that was never fully defined by what happened. Tonight, when your room goes quiet and the phone finally goes face down and the sounds of the day begin to soften, I want you to try something. Not an exercise, not a visualization, Just this. Let your body settle into wherever you are lying. Feel the weight of it, the warmth, the realness of this moment. And without straining, without grasping, let your mind drift toward a version of your life that feels complete, not lavish, not dramatic, just complete. What does the air feel like in that version? What is the quality of the morning in that version of your life? Are there sounds you can barely make out? A voice, a particular kind of quiet, a sense of ordinary ease that you have not felt in a long time. Let that feeling rise in the body without explaining it, without justifying it, without asking it to prove itself. Just let it be there. Let it be as real as the bed beneath you. And then let sleep come. Not toward that feeling. From inside it. Let sleep find you there, inside the already whole version of your life. And trust that the deeper mind, which does not sleep the way the conscious mind does, will carry that feeling somewhere your thinking cannot reach. This is what Neville Goddard meant when he wrote, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows." He was not speaking about fantasy. He was speaking about identity, about the deep, quiet signal the subconscious takes as its instruction for what to build next. Tonight is not just a night. It is a window, a real one. The version of you that the old memory decided you were, she has held this long enough. She has been faithful, and she has been patient, and she has survived things she was never told were survivable. But she does not have to be the final answer. Go quietly into tonight, not hoping, not asking, simply being and already the one whose life is whole. If this felt like it was written for you, because in a deeper way it was, welcome home to Healing Love Space.